Daemonweaver stood upon the highest balcony of the defiled temple of Amara, her golden eyes gazing over the city that had become her throne. Below, Vel Tarsis burned, not with fire, but with excess, corruption, and the dark ecstasy of those who had surrendered to her will. They were hers now. Every noble who had cast off their honor for pleasure, every merchant who had sold their soul for wealth, every commoner who had knelt in desperate devotion to Llothenia. And yet it was not enough. Not for what was to come. "You have conquered a city, my beloved," the voice of Llothenia coiled around her like silk and smoke. But what is a city to a world? Daemonweaver closed her eyes, feeling the presence of her Dark Queen pressing into her soul, wrapping around her like an intimate embrace. "I will give you the power to claim more than just men and women," Llothenia whispered. "I will give you the power to forge an army." Daemonweaver's breath quickened. "The dead of Vel Tarsis?" she asked, imagining raising the fallen, calling them from the depths to fight once more. But Llothenia laughed, a dark, lilting sound that sent a shiver of pleasure and fear down Daemonweaver's spine. "There are not enough corpses to serve our cause," Llothenia said. "No, my love, we will not use mere bodies. We will create something far greater." The air around Daemonweaver darkened, the night itself twisting, bending, and in its embrace she saw shapes forming, figures of shadow and hunger, creatures that should not exist in the mortal world. "The ether holds echoes of all who have ever lived," Llothenia explained, "and all who have ever suffered. The tormented, the betrayed, the vengeful, they do not pass in peace. They linger, waiting for a master strong enough to call them back." Daemonweaver smiled. "I will teach you to shape them, to forge them into an army of the damned," Llothenia whispered. "A force that needs no food, no water, no rest. A force that will tear down cities, bring nations to their knees, and shatter the faith of the gods themselves." The Dark Queen's power surged into Daemonweaver, and she fell to her knees, her fingers digging into the marble as a torrent of knowledge and magic flooded her soul. And for the first time she saw how to bend the ether to her will. The ritual was a thing of pure darkness, a working unlike anything the world had ever seen. Daemonweaver stood alone in the ruins of the temple's grand hall, now her throne room, her sanctum, her place of ascension. Around her, whispering shadows gathered, spirits, half-formed nightmares, echoes of warriors who had died with hatred in their hearts, their rage and pain still clinging to existence. She spoke the words of power, her voice twisting reality, her will forging them into something new. From the shadows, the first of her Etherborn took shape. They emerged from the darkness itself, not mere ghosts, not mindless revenants, but creatures of pure malevolence, given form by her will and strength by Llothenia's touch. Thousands of them. Their bodies were wreathed in black mist, their eyes burning embers, their hands like claws of midnight steel. They carried weapons that did not exist in the mortal world, blades forged of void and suffering, capable of tearing through flesh and soul alike. And when Daemonweaver spoke, they knelt. This was not an army that needed to march. Not an army that could be starved or trapped or poisoned. This was a force she could summon in an instant, which would vanish into the ether when not needed, waiting until she called upon them again. This was a legion that could not be defeated. Not by swords, not by fire, not by faith. Daemonweaver extended her hand, and the air shook as her army rose as one, their collective whispering voices a symphony of devotion. "We are yours, Dark Mistress." Her smile widened. "Yes, you are." City of Vel Tarsis no longer hid its corruption, no longer feigned devotion to Amara or any other god. The temple bells that once called to prayer now rang out in praise of a new faith, the faith of Daemonweaver and her Dark Queen. And her followers grew bolder. Those who had once worshipped in secret now openly declared their devotion. Noble houses painted her sigil upon their banners, merchants whispered oaths in exchange for power, and the streets that had once been filled with prayers to Amara now echoed with songs of shadow and seduction. And beyond Vel Tarsis, word spread. The gods took notice. In their temples, priests and priestesses felt a shift in the balance, an unfamiliar darkness creeping into the world, a force outside of fate, outside of all they understood. The champions of light felt it too, their dreams haunted by whispers of something ancient, something unstoppable. In the greatest halls of power, rulers feared the rumors, afraid to even speak her name, lest they draw her gaze upon them. And Daemonweaver laughed. Her cult was no longer a secret. Her army was ready to be unleashed, and soon the world would bow, not to Amara, not to the other gods, but to Daemonweaver, and the Dark Queen who whispered in her ear.